Well, hello, folks. Welcome to the Antisocial Podcast. My name is Andy Dowling, and you've guessed it, this week's shout-out. Each and every week, I thank somebody that supports me and the podcast, and it can be in a range of different ways. It could be something like a message of encouragement or a guest recommendation. It could be buying a t-shirt from the online store. It could be shouting me a beer via the PayPal button over at andysocial.net. It could be a bit of social media love. It does not matter, small or big. It all adds up. It keeps me motivated, keeps me inspired, keeps the light on when all is dark, and just keeps this podcast moving. So thank you so much to everybody that supports me. It just means so much. I can never put into the right words for you guys, but this is my way of giving back just ever so slightly. So this week's shout out is for Michael Stewart. Michael is from Avonsley. Is that how you say it? Avonsley? Anyway, Avonsley in Victoria. Michael bought a patch a little while ago. So thank you so much, Michael, for supporting me with the patch. And I know you listen to the podcast, so that alone is more than enough. But thank you so much for the extra 1% on top. It means a lot to me. So please shoot me a message. I've got a nice kitty of lots of goodies, giveaways, and I'm going to put together a care package and send that out to you in the post. So shoot me a message and we'll get that moving. But thank you so much. And thank you once again to everybody that supports the podcast. And I did make a mention last week as well, but for anybody out there that owns their own business, has a band or a project or whatever they're involved with, and has anything that they want to donate to the podcast for these giveaways. I'm going to have a bunch of competitions that are happening later on down the track. If you want to contribute to these, it's a great way to get your stuff out to more people and maybe a different type of audience as well. So if you're interested, you want to contribute, shoot me a message wherever, online, through the website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want. And that'd be really, really cool. And I'd love to help you guys out as well. So cheers, folks. Now, you guys may know, but every once in a while, I like to be a heavy metal warrior and prance around on stage with the Australian metal band Lord. If you love a bit of old school heavy metal, you can go to lord.net.au. The website's really cool. We've got streaming music, we've got Spotify playlists, we've got video clips, we've got all sorts of information there, historical stuff about the band as well, lots and lots of detail. You can go over there, and there's an online store as well. A great way to get a taste of what we're all about if you have not heard our music yet. So hopefully you enjoy the tunes. In addition to that, we are also playing November 3rd, Saturday, November 3rd, at the Bullface Stag in Sydney for day 2 of the Steel Assassins Festival. We are headlining that. So if you are interested, you can buy tickets through MoshTix or lord.net.au or andysocial.net. Click on the show tabs and you should be able to find the ticket links there. If you get lost, let me know and I will hold your hand. In addition to being a heavy metal warrior, I also host the Self-Starter podcast, which is all about small business, self-employment, and freelancing. You should be able to find that podcast in your podcast player right now, or you can go to I was almost going to say Lord again. You can go to selfstarter.com.au. And all the details are there. There's also a blog that desperately needs an update. But I've got some stuff coming, trust me. But go and check that out. It doesn't matter if you own your own business or not, or even if you don't care about owning your own business. You could be working a job that you hate and you just want to move on to better things. You might want to earn a bit of pocket money on the side. It doesn't matter. If any of those things may just spark a little bit of interest, then this podcast might be for you. Or if you do know somebody that fits into any of those little categories, please flick the podcast over to them as well. I've been really, really happy with the progress so far. Thank you so much to all of the Antisocial faithful that have been supporting that podcast. Also, it means a hell of a lot. So selfstarter.com.au. Check it out. This week's episode is with Rob Brens. Rob is a drummer from Melbourne, and he has literally played with, folks, 50 gazillion bands over the years. Yes, 50 gazillion is a real number, folks. Please, look that up, Google it. Trust me, folks. 50 gazillion bands over the years. Most notably, he is at the moment playing with Hadal Maw and I Built the Sky. I'll have links to those two bands in the show notes over at andysocial.net. But just to slightly scrape the surface, some of the bands that he's played with over the years include King Parrot, Desecrator, Alarum, Dreadnought, James Avani, and Rob Farnham, of all people. That's pretty cool. And the list goes on. There's a long, long list of bands that Rob's played with over the years, and everything from metal, rock, jazz, and everything in between. A really versatile player, very talented musician, and just a super cool guy. Now, I caught up with Rob at his brand new rehearsal studio in Melbourne. He's sharing a space with Dave Haley of Psychroptic fame, and really cool space, really cool, like a permanent setup that they've got there. Actually quite jealous of what he's got there. But we sat down and just had this chin wag that was epic. It was a long chat, but a really fun one of the best ones I've had in a long time. We covered all sorts of different topics, and you really get a better insight into the world of Rob Brens, and I certainly learned a lot more about Rob, which was really cool. So enough yapping from me, because this is a long podcast episode. I will have links to everything in the show notes over at andysocial.net. You can go and check out everything about Rob at his really good website, rob-brens, BRENS.com. If you scroll down in your podcast player, you should be able to see all the links there, so you can click on them nice and easily. Enough of me. Please enjoy this really cool chat with Rob Brens.
I think drummers have probably the least amount of leeway in terms of, fuck ups, depending on the style. Like, I've, done shows where I felt like I've just eaten shit, and people were just like, oh, that was fantastic. I'm like, thanks. Like, I've learned to just say thank you. Because I used to do the, nah, man, that shit's fucked. Like, what are you talking about? But it's just like, man, this person's either trying to pay me a compliment, and if they're telling me, they think it's fantastic, and I'm like, well, no, it was shit. Then I'm just like, it's like I'm questioning their intelligence.
Yeah,
I'm telling them they're, it's like, hey, you're stupid. How dare you be nice to me? Like, so, I had to get out of that habit. But I still can't get away from that feeling of like, I mean, as long as the groove's there, that's super important. And if that gets disrupted, then, next to the singer. Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, you could be, there could be an argument that you are one of the louder people on stage as well, so things can cut through, depending on the mix and the style of music. But I mean, and I'll get to this in a sec, because I'm so curious with the amount of freaking bands that you play in or have played in over the years. But I mean, how much of this ratio-wise are you playing with clicks? Is it a large majority of it, or
today it's like 100% almost? Yeah. Like, so there was like a funk soul group that I was working with, which was just a great, sort of change of scenery, because, we're playing like the Blues Train out in Queenscliff, and little, corner, just, packed in the corner, cocktail bar kinds of things, and playing low dynamics, and it was almost awkward because it's just like, am I playing right? Yeah. So the click thing is good for like we're saying about like the nerves thing, because like that, I can always go back to the click if I can focus on the click. Like the deep heat thing. That's what the click is for me. As long as I'm centered on that keeps me away from, sort of getting too, caught up in what's going on around me. Even though like I shouldn't be intellectualizing things too much with the click track, but at the same time I kind of, it's particularly with band, I'm being hired by a lot of these bands too. So after, I want to make sure I'm on point with everything.
The click track, we've been using them for a few years now, and there's definitely a convenience around it, especially for now. We're getting to a point where, I'm sure by the time this comes out, I think most people will probably know, but like, we don't have a permanent drummer anymore. So I think what will always be is, it's been like this for, I don't know how many years now, but it's like the three of us, and then we will just bring in the best of the best to play with us. And we've got enough sort of tools in the toolbox where we've got click tracks, we've got all our backing tracks, we've got instructional stuff there, where if we approach someone and then they're available and keen, then we can go, here's like the Dropbox folder, here's everything in there that you need, and references, everything is just in one spot. And if you need anything more, then let us know, but it won't be like this drip feed thing where you try and work it out. It's just that we've got this down to a fine art. So you just get people in that are seasoned, they know exactly what they need to do, they're professional, and we just pack them with all the stuff that they need. And it's not the best scenario, because you'd always love to have like, the stable people in the band, and it's just that way you get equal contribution from everybody. Yeah. But it's just the nature of what it is now. And I see so many, I mean, you're one of them as well, where there's so many drummers out there that are really sought after, because I don't know if there's a lack of drummers out there, or there's a lack of drummers at a particular level, but it's just, or maybe it's even a case that as a drummer, it's just not that rewarding just to be doing one thing. Like it's more rewarding to sort of be available for a whole range of different projects.
It seems to be like the thing nowadays. It's kind of like, I mean, you have like, you know, bands where it's like just this ongoing unit, but more and more, and it probably has more to do with like the home studio thing, because a lot of this stuff is sort of born out of, you know, these home projects, like this one dude who's just masterminded the whole thing and then just put something together. And yeah, more often than not, it's like all the drums are programmed and everything, and it's just easier to just to hire someone, you know, to get in the game. And once again, like with the internet, it's like they can build up their following online and, you know, have the capital to just go, yeah, I'm just going to hire someone, you know, and particularly over time, it's like, you know, someone can just run the business and just take the lion's share and just hire people, you know, who they need. It's definitely a lot more convenient, especially compared to the logistics of just trying to get, you know, 5 people to agree on the same fucking thing and turn up at the same time. I got work in the morning. I got this, then that, and that. You know, it's everyone's. It's like
it's hard enough. It's me too. As soon as you got more than one person, it's a challenge, and the more, then obviously the more challenging it can get. But I mean, from a drummer point of view, I mean, like, is there more value for you being in a situation, at least from the outside, that you're in a position where you can be flexible and work with a whole range of different artists than, I don't know, maybe it's just such an old school way of thinking that, you know, unless you're doing non-stop touring, it's not logical to be just with one band and one band only.
I sort of found that, like, you know, I felt like I was putting all my eggs in, you know, one basket, you know, if I only had one band. Yeah. So it's like, if that, you know, particularly when something like drumming that is, you know, that's my passion, it's like, that's, you know, my thing. So, and usually that's directed into a band. And if that one band isn't going well, then that basically means everything isn't going well, you know. True. So, you know, you can become consumed by it. So I found that by having a few different things on the go, that then, you know, at least if one thing wasn't, I don't know, it was stalling or something wasn't going quite right, then, you know, at least the other thing was happening as well. So, but then, you know, I've gone too much the other way and then spread myself way too thin, and then, oh, do you remember that rehearsal tomorrow night? Oh, yeah. And like, didn't like, forgot to learn all these things and gone in and just like eating shit. And it's like, oh, fuck. Okay, well, I've got to dial that back. And yeah, sort of just find that, you know, that happy medium, you know. And I'm sort of, even the past, say like 12 to 18 months, I've just been really lucky. Like, I think I've just probably for the first time had like a couple of small, just minor clashes where I've just had to, you know, but it's easy. Like, I just buzz someone else, you know, and, you know, and the same thing. I was like, here's the Dropbox, here's all the stuff, and they're all clicks that I've programmed as well. So I've added all the cues in there as well, because more often than not, these gigs have started on like, say like a week's notice or something. So I've just added all my little cheats in the clicks and everything. So they're there for the next guy, and yeah. So yeah, I've only just recently had like one or two minor clashes. So very fortunate, I think.
Oh, I reckon. I mean, and I can't keep up with how many bands. Like, I don't even know who you're currently playing with at the moment. I know of a couple, but I don't know to what extent or who you're currently associated with. Yeah. So what's the current roster?
So like Hadal Maw is like you know, the original band thing. So that's like something that, you know, I was there from the start. You know, writing, contributing, you know, it's like, sort of, you know, member, so to speak. So that's, you know, more or less like my art project where I can just sort of explore, you know, just what I can do on the instrument. So
you're really contributing to that.
Yeah. And, you know, helping make it grow and, you know, handling a lot of management stuff and just using it as a vehicle for what, you know, I want to create on the instrument. You know, a lot of the, you know, the thesis of that whole band is just, you know, oh, you know, this sounds like this, so let's try and do our own thing with it. We just err on the side of weird or whatever, which is pretty evident. Outside of that, there's I Built the Sky, which is so this is, it's like for all intents and purposes, like, you know, it's, you know, like I'm in the photos and all that sort of stuff as well, but, you know, I Built the Sky is notoriously Rowan's band. And there's Mirrors, which is a metalcore kind of thing. And, but yeah, same sort of thing. Like I've been working with them for, maybe about 15, 16 months now. And it's sort of just become that over time. It's, even though it's, I'm, working for them, I'm still very much, sort of, they asked me recently to to join the band, and it's just like, well, yeah, it's like I love working with you guys. I like to keep that going. So, and I think that's more just a poetic thing because, we've obviously just, developed that bromance over time, so.
Well, I guess it certainly helps when it's different in Australia, I think, it's probably not not dramatically different compared to most places in the world, probably except for particular pockets of Europe, but, not every band is working 24/7. We're just not in that era, and everyone's all about diversifying their life, their interests and doing a million different things at once. And so it's never just like the Metallica. It's not just we're in it together, we do this, we live and breathe, we live together, we do everything. It's not like the Motley Crue. It's not the 80s Sunset Strip story or anything like that anymore. There's a couple of guys out there that are trying to keep it together and keep that sort of dream alive. But I think now it's like you can afford to do it where you can become a part of a number of different projects, and even from a permanent point of view, because nobody's out there taking up as much time as probably what bands psychologically used to think in the past. I think now it's like, you're going to Europe soon as well, and that's for quite a hefty chunk of time.
Yeah.
But I guess once that's over and you come back, then it's probably not going to be much after that with that particular band. You will transition into a couple of other things when you get back.
Yeah, well, I literally get off the plane and get picked up by another band and dropped, and I'm off on the East Coast that day. So it's going to suck ass, but it's all part of the game.
So can I ask, and it's up to you how much detail you want to go into, but I guess the age old question is, how does somebody keep it viable? So you do a whole bunch of different things, like you're involved in different projects. Without getting to, this is my rabbit hole, because I get to industry talk and I start talking about all these sort of things. But do you still float a part-time or a casual job on the side to sort of keep these things going? It's a long time away that you know.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to to have a full-time job where that flexibility is there. Very fortunate that my boss was someone that I used to play in a band with. And it came at a time where when I was teaching full time, and between just being super burnt out at the time, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and the school I was teaching at just closed down, and I'm just couldn't afford to. I just took that opportunity to just find something that was super consistent. And at the time, I was touring with King Parrot, so that was a lot of touring. So going to that job with already having that kind of schedule happening, that was obviously aware of what was going on. So having that flexibility there has been essential, and being something where I can have headphones on all day and listen to sets and over and over again, and whatever I've got, whatever I've got to learn, there's that added bonus as well. And but it's definitely over time, like I was saying about that balance between how many projects I do, sort of just turning that dial enough times to work, moving that needle back and forth enough to go, okay, here's where that sweet spot is, where it's, you could just do too many passion things, and it's just I've looked at things that I would love to do, but it's we don't really have a budget, and it's just I really want to do this, but I just can't. Like many things, it's just look, would love to, but I can't. And at the same time, you got to retain your sanity as well. I've looked at things where I've been offered very, very good money, but I'm just I know if I take that on, that money's not going to be worth much. Yeah, no, I'm looking at a mental breakdown there. So so just sort of moving that needle around enough to be able to go, okay. And right now, it's you know, it's in a real sweet spot, but like touch wood, who knows? Anything could happen. Like, this I Built the Sky thing's sort of, it's been gradually building up over the past couple of months, like with this Europe thing coming up, and the shows have been better and better. And I know he's in talks with a lot of other promoters and stuff like that. And, and I'm about 2 weeks away from recording an EP with Mirrors. And that's another band that's been going strength to strength.
It's not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, I say it every time. I'm just like, it's like, yeah, man, I'm doing all these tours.
Playing with too many successful bands.
Yeah, I don't know, what I'm going to do about all these shows I'm doing, and even like with Hadal, we just did this run with Psychroptic and Archspire, and we just kind of felt like, we almost felt like a third wheel next to those two bands, but the response was just absolutely ridiculous. We weren't expecting it at all, because we just write. Every album we write is different. We just expect to just piss everyone off every time. Not the intention, but but the response we got, and when getting more emails and bigger offers, and I'm like, fuck, so because that's a more quiet band, but looks like we may not get that option. But I don't like to say I'll worry about it when it happens, but sometimes it's like, well, what other option do you have?
It's good. No, it's good now though. With I think people are far more. They got far more self-awareness and understanding where they fit into the grand scheme of things. And even for you, like you're saying, more or less learning how to say no to things, which
it's so big.
It's so counterintuitive for so many people, for most people, because opportunity usually equates to a yes.
Yep.
And regardless of whatever the consequences are, it's like you say yes and you work it out later, and you continue to say yes, but it gets to a point where you've got to work out, what's my intention here? What am I trying to achieve? And if I'm blindly sort of just grabbing at things, it probably just means that I don't know what I actually want, which then leads you to those situations where you burn out. And that self-awareness is such a massive thing that I think more people have got awareness and can now get to a point where they know where they want to go, but they're also planning 12 months in advance. They know what they're doing October next year. And it's like, all right, well, that week is highlighted, that's off the cards, nothing else comes in there, and then I'll give myself a week buffer either side, because then I can fill it in. I've got some wiggle room here and there, but then I can also then start to put chunks here and there, and then suddenly, before you know it, you know what you're doing for the next 12 to 18 months. And it's just crazy. Where I think in the past, or at least, I'm in my own journey, but you sort of just go, well, maybe 6 months, and you just sort of just run and just keep running into things and just grabbing whatever you can. And then after a while you go, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's definitely this famine fear that could sort of overcome you, because you could sort of think when the good gigs and, and good offers and this, that and the other are coming in, it's just like, well, yeah, I mean, that square's free, on my calendar, I'll fill that up. And particularly early on in the game as well, when you sort of, you're trying to get that, quote unquote exposure and the experience and all that stuff, which you do need, and you're always, doing it with this kind of, you sort of insecurity, about yourself, because, you're trying to get out there and all that kind of stuff, and you can't help but compare yourself to other people. But there does have to come a point where you have to sort of take stock of what you're doing and what you're capable of, because if you sort of find yourself saying yes to just, I'll just do it. Like I see, when I see really, really capable players out there playing for nothing, it's like, cool, but that's hurting that can hurt the industry in a big way, particularly for people who just, say they do it as a hobby. But when someone can just hire the next dude for nothing, hey, this guy's doing it for nothing, I'm just going to hire this guy, then that hurts everyone else. Now everyone else has to drop, and that's probably just the symptom of everything that's going on right now. Yeah. And I'm just like, well, you know what? I don't have to worry about thinking, hey, you know what? I'm Mr. Hotshot. I should be worth, I should be worth this much. But I thought, you know what? That guy is worth that much. So, he shouldn't have to drop his price because I'm willing to do it for peanuts. So if only for everyone else, I should, actually be a bit more scrutinous about the kind of work that I'm taking on.
I'm big on pricing, and I've it sounds such a weird statement. If someone took that out of context, it'd be like, oh, yeah. I love lamb. Great. Yeah. But I'm fascinated by the perception that pricing can have on people. And, I've always sort of analysed the way that we price our merch and the way we discuss money with promoters or with other bands or whatever it is. And also just in other industries as well, and how people sell products and sell services and the perception that it can give. And I think there's this sweet spot where I think people will pay a premium amount of money for what is perceived to be a premium service.
Yep.
And they will even get to a point where they go, oh man, geez, I wasn't expecting that. But there'll be an assurance in that price where I think there'll be a perception that you can't get that if you spent any less than that. And I think people panic, and I've tried so hard because this is really difficult, but I've tried really hard with us in our band to not do as many discounts anymore.
Yep.
Not do the store sale anymore and just slash the prices. If we want to get rid of stuff, we give it away. And we do it through different channels, in different ways creatively to get rid of stock. But for us, we have price points in place, and if we were compared to other bands, especially sort of in Australia, some of our stuff, people might go, well, it's a little bit more expensive. Why are you guys selling a CD still for $20 when everyone else is selling them for $10? We're like, well, we think it's worth $20.
Yeah.
And if you don't want it, then that's cool. Like, no drama. We're not pushing on you. And what we find is that we attract people that really understand the value in what we're selling. And I think coming back to what you were saying before, and this whole thing about balance and not taking on too much stuff, is that you're sort of almost saying no by not reducing your price down to try and compete with other people. You've created your own reputation, and your actions through your work ethic and working with all these amazing musicians and bands, and you've got this portfolio of work that you can say, this is me, this is what I do, and if you want to work with me and I'm available, then this is what it's going to look like. And that's totally cool if you don't think it's worth that amount of money, but that's what I am, and be completely confident in that. And I think what you find is most people that you actually want to work with will turn around and say, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's also like, even if, said person thinks, I don't think you're worth that much. It's like, look, I might even agree with you, but I'm looking at my schedule, and that's what it's going to cost to make me, tear my hair out over this thing. I mean, not that we tear my hair out, I'd be very grateful. But that's more what I'm looking at over that. And on the same thing, it's also like, more so when, say, with the merch thing as well, it's, it's attributing value as well. I think when, people, look at something that's really good, it looks really good and everything, but it's like, it's really cheap, you kind of go, oh, well, what's wrong with it? Really? Like, especially food, man, like, I mean, how much do people just love, like, if you go to a lot of, when you go to a restaurant, you have like a $40 or $50 steak, and you go to work the next day, you're not telling them, I had this steak last night. I had a $40 steak last night. Like, you hear it all the time. It's like, you're almost paying for that experience. And, a lot of the time, like, it is, well, it's obviously going to be good, but that's like, it's part of the thing. It's, it's attributing value to it. And you have, we've, same deal. We've gone through that experience of, this is the more in the merch context, but we've raised prices over time, just to actually, make some decent coin. Like, we're not trying to like empty out people's pockets. We're actually just trying to, as just try and reduce that margin a bit. And sales don't go down.
No,
like,
I think people should not feel guilty about it either. I think people have panicked for quite. I mean, I've certainly panicked years and years ago about wanting to win everybody over, and so you would create incentives for the fence sitters to pay for a ticket to come to the show or to buy the t-shirt or buy the CD, and even those people would still complain anyway. And you think, do I really want people that complain over dollars and cents, and maybe just put all my attention and focus on the people that, not that you would take advantage of them, but they're not going to question something that you put out because they automatically see the value in it. And yes, I mean, I've certainly seen examples of bands that go on the other end of the spectrum where everything is way too expensive, and there's a bit of cockiness that sort of comes from that. But you know, coming back to that sweet spot, I think that if, you know, we're in this weird time, at least, you know, from what I can see, is like we're transitioning from this culture of mass consumption, and I think people, you know, the whole minimalist stuff and people decluttering their lives, and I've gone through that, and I think it's like anything, when you start to think about things yourself, you start to see it everywhere. But I've seen a lot of people that have started to be more intentional with what they do with their money, and so it's not just a case of, you know, stereotypically going to a gig, smashing a few beers and just buying one of everything. Now it's like, do I actually need all this, or do I want to buy that? You know, maybe I'll just buy the CD that I want or the shirt that I want, instead of, I've got 50 million black t-shirts in my cupboard. I probably don't need another 5 tonight. Maybe I'll just get one. And so suddenly people are, when they do purchase something, they see the value in it and they cherish it so much more than just hauling. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, I don't have enough money for one CD, because, you know, CDs were $30-$35 a pop, and, you know, by the time mum gave you enough money to sort of get into the city and buy some lunch or whatever, you'd have just enough money to buy a CD with the leftover money. And so you'd be on the train or the bus going home, and you're reading the liner notes, and you sit there in front of the stereo and you're listening to the music, and you're totally, like, you're forcing yourself to get into it because you've spent so much money on this little thing in front of you, and there's so much information in there. But then when I started getting a job and started getting money, I'm buying, like, I've got 5 CDs, why not? Then I buy 10. And then at one point I was like buying, like, I just haul and get 30 odd CDs as like a discount bin. I'm like, and then suddenly I wasn't reading the liner notes anymore. I wasn't paying attention to the lyrics. I'd just be like, and getting to a point where you start digitizing your music onto the computer, and then the CD would never get used again, just gets put into a cupboard or a shelf. And then you start to devalue everything, because it's just like, it's just a churn and burn. It becomes this methodical autopilot thing that you do because you can. Just
analog Spotify, really, at that level. But even then, with that much, like, CDs coming in, that you're probably still absorbing them more than, say, like, you know, like today's generation. Like, there's got to be something said for that experience of, you know, these things are like 20 something bucks a pop, you know, and I'm going to read the thing back to front and listen to it over and over and over again. Like, I remember, like, I only had that experience again recently with, and look, maybe the your generation is going to receive that experience again of, with, you know, vinyl being a big thing again, of sitting there, like, and listening to music being the thing you are doing at that time, you know, not this, you know, occurrence with, you know, it's the thing that you're doing.
It's not the soundtrack in the background while you do something else, which is fine. And I think music can motivate and pump you up to do different things. But like, you know, you couldn't do other things when you were listening to music. You had your stereo, which meant you had to be in the room. You couldn't walk away. And, you know, I mean, I'm about the same age as you, and, you know, had the Walkman. Then the Discmans came out, which were like, I remember buying a Discman, like a Sony Discman, for like $400 or something like that. And it was like the first version of like the anti-skip, which was like, which, if you just moved it any more than like just a little bit off the sort of a horizontal position, then it would skip. But that was the version of anti-skip. So you couldn't take it anywhere. It was just something that you just picked up and moved to a different room, then put it on a table and then just sat there and listened to it. But you couldn't do other things. Like, unless you were in that same room, that was it. And you absorb so much more. But I mean, I do it now. Like, I've got Spotify Premium. And I'm like, you know, if I get bored, I can't think of what to listen to, I'll go to like Discover Weekly or whatever, or new releases. And I hate it, but I will go, like, first bar, I go, whoa, shit, next. And before I know it, I'm back to the first song again. I'm like, oh, already? And then sometimes I'll actually force myself to listen to a couple of them all the way through. But you get into this churn and burn thing. You're just not
I'm trying to
enjoying
avoid
anything.
that so hard. I mean, how many albums, like I've just known over the course of my life, all my most favorite albums, you know, I didn't get it until like the fifth or sixth entire listen all the way through. And then they've stuck with me for like, you know, for like years on end. Whereas, and, you know, some things that I've just loved instantly, you know, I'm just like, yeah, I'm done with it after a few weeks. But like, the amount of, when you've only say got like a few CDs, like the depths you would go to. Like I remember, you know, when I started like playing drums and like just getting into music more, and you know, Mum would, you know, because we had a turntable then, you know, was giving me, you know, her vinyls, and it turned out she owned like Abbey Road and Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. I'm like, since when were you cool? Like, and hearing like, and this is more or less like, you know, my metal origin story, but like hearing, you know, She's So Heavy by the Beatles, which is like, I think that was like one of the first down-tuned songs ever, because it was like in drop D or something. And just like that outro, like just evil doomy riff, but and it gets all atmospheric, and there's like more drum fills and stuff, and obviously the drumming on that's like blowing my mind. And actually like, you know, because you had like the tape deck in there as well, and just recording just the outro over and over and over.
Really?
Yeah, so I had one side of a tape, there was the outro to She's So Heavy on like just an endless loop, and I'll just like, and just play it. And it's just like
That's so funny.
yeah, it's like, but yeah, well, the opportunity for that isn't really there, because like there was just this, you just, oh, well, I guess I'm going to put this thing on again, you know, and all of a sudden something captures your
You become
imagination.
obsessed with it, like it, and I'm sure, like, just that's it's so funny, because it's like when you've got the cassette and you're dubbing like whatever's on the radio, and you're listening to like one of the sort of the late night hard rock or metal programs on one of, like, I don't know, like a Triple M or whatever, and you sit in there and you're like getting ready to press like the play and record button at the same time to try and capture the song, and then they would always cut in before like the last few bars of the song with like the announcer talking over it, going, oh, and that's Metallica, blah, blah, next up. And then you're like, oh, fuck. And so then you go back and then try and edit that so it would cut off before the person's voice came in. So for years, like I had like mixtapes off the radio where I didn't even know what the end of that song sounded like.
Oh, right.
I was so used to the song ending on a particular like offbeat or something that was really random, which sounded ridiculous, but it became so natural, because that's all I ever listened to. I became obsessed with that version of the song. And then when I eventually bought the vinyl or the CD or whatever, and I listened to it, I went, oh, I don't know if I like this. It sounds weird. It's just like the extended mix. It's like, no, that's actually the proper song. I'm like, oh, okay, no worries. But to clip like the end of the song and just loop it over, it's just like,
but that's
so cool.
That's me.
It would have been
just
ingrained in your head.
Yeah, just getting like super. I mean, that was around the time I started playing drums.
Yeah.
So like that's obviously said a lot about what was capturing my imagination, and that's all I had, you know. So I didn't have like a big, you know, pile of CDs and stuff to go through. I mean, that's, you know, because I mean now I, you know, play a lot of heavy music. It's like, I mean, you know, if I could play everything, I would play everything, but I just keep, like, I seem to have a penchant for that stuff. Like it's, you know, I enjoy playing all styles, but that just seems to be a style that, and for some reason I'm better at it than the others.
Sense.
It's like, I mean, for some reason, like my brain can make that stuff work better than the other stuff. You know, I'll watch like a neo soul player or a gospel dude and just be like, fuck, I wish I could do that. That is so sick. You know, or just like watching a band like that and be like, man, I'd love to do a band like that. And, you know, and not because I'm doing so much metal, I would just love to be able to do all these different bands, and, you know, the styles of drumming are cool in all of them. You know, and I can do them to an extent, and maybe it is just the lack of experience, but for some reason it's like playing metal just makes the most sense to my body.
And it's kind of like, you know, guitarists, where, you know, you can have somebody that can have like the sheet music in front of them, and I won't use a classical, you know, player, because I think that's a different world altogether. But
Absolutely.
for like a guitarist, you know, they could have like the sheet music in front of them for a different style of music, or even just a different style of player, and you can nail it and get it completely right, but then you haven't got that extra element of that feel on top of it that completely defines you and separates you from everything else. Otherwise it just sounds like too stale and structured. And I'm sure that's the same sort of thing, where I'm sure if you, out of repetition, just immersing yourself in those other styles, that you would you would get to the level that you would set yourself against. But I think a lot of it is like you know, like using the gospel drummer as an example, the feel that person would have playing that style would be completely different to any sort of feel that you would have with all the music that you do. And so, yes, like you can get the patterns and you can get everything in place and get the structure of the song, but you're not going to have that 1% extra that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, and even to, I think I've been playing for maybe 23 years now or something like that. So, and I still can't really work out what that thing is. But I think it's that thing of, like I was saying about, just having that loop on the tape for like half an hour. It's like that thing that's inside you that makes the most, it makes the most sense. And that's probably, and I don't think it can't just be immersion, I guess. It's like every time, say like when I was studying, so I studied music for 3 years after I finished high school, and there was the opportunity to play fucking anything, like you could do anything you wanted there, and and just every time it's not good. And I was practicing everything, like because that was the place to do it. I was practicing everything under the sun. I had a Latin book, I had a jazz book, I had exercises for everything, and I was working on all of it, and and I was playing all of it too, because those opportunities were there. And but whenever it was like something that was heavy, it was just like breathing. You
understand the essence of it, whatever that is, and it's not a tangible thing, and it's not something where people can go, yes, here's your checklist if you want to play this style of music, and these are the things that you got to be competent in and be able to do. But the essence part of it is just something that either comes to people or it doesn't. It's just, it's like it's not tangible. It's so hard to explain. I think, people talk about flow states. Yeah. And I don't know if it's the best example, but I sort of associate it a little bit with flow states, because flow states where you sort of get into a flow, but it becomes something that's second nature, and you are able to do whatever you're doing to a level that consciously you probably wouldn't be able to achieve. And that comes from repetition, but I think it also comes from being able to absorb, it sounds so woo-woo, but it's the real essence behind it. Something clicks, and I don't know what it is. And I think maybe it's the 10,000 million hours that they talk about with mastery and things like that. But I think it's understanding, maybe like, if you think about, maybe for harder music, or maybe for the gospel example is a good one, because I think you could probably stereotype a fair bit with that. The story of gospel, the culture behind it, what it means to people on a deeper level than just music or just performing. And you've got all these additional things that are added to it. So then people's emotion comes through the way that they play, the way that they express themselves. And I think when people are able to link the story in behind it all, then I think that's when the essence comes out. And I don't know, I could just be talking out of my ass now, but that's things that sort of make sense. And I think why some people gravitate towards some things and do really well versus other things where they don't quite get it. It doesn't quite click. Yeah, it's like that little spark in something, it's the reason why, you're doing what you're doing, and I'm playing the drums and not any other instrument. I love to tinker on other stuff. It's, whenever, or, if someone's like a painter or something, it's why you go, because, you go through primary school and high school and you do all these different subjects and all these different things. And then all of a sudden there's this one thing that, it's not even that you're suddenly good at it. It's that, that flow state thing that, that, and you can, and people can experience that in other things, not just in a work, it's like watching a movie, just where like time just falls away and you're so engrossed. But of course it has to be the right movie too. Like, it's got to be the, for you as a person. You got to identify with something in there. Something's got to have that prior connection where whatever you can identify with whatever is going on. And it could be like the most subconscious element of the movie or the piece of music or the sport that you've chosen or the industry that you work in. Your part of your story or part of that essence, if that's the right word, would be that story that you just said, where you had this end of this Beatles song on repeat, and you dubbed it like that, and you listen to it, and that becomes your story. That becomes the why, which is your framework to everything that came afterwards. So, no matter where you go on your journey and playing with all these different people and all the achievements that you put under your belt as you go, and you can always go back to that baseline. And when you get lost along the way and you think, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, what have I done? You sort of go, bam.
Well, that's like the metric by which you're sort of, like almost like measuring the quality of your experience, because those are for me, that's what I should be looking towards. Like those things that are just, you pick the people, like your friends are the people that you have those moments with, like where you sit around the table and it's just like, is it 3 a.m? What the fuck? Like, and not because you've been pissing on, but like, because even though, pissing on does help with that. But like, because you're just letting go of things and time falls away and you're having these experiences, and it's the same on this, on the stage as well. And the gospel thing, like, is a good example because, like, I just really stuck out to me when, like in an interview, D'Angelo, soul dude, was like saying that he only ever hires gospel musicians because they always play in church, and it's like when you're playing for God, you've got nowhere to hide. You can't fool him. Wow. So you've got to be the real deal when you're performing.
Wow. Yeah.
So you have
That's an interesting way of looking at
it.
Yeah,
so you really have to.
Want some reliable, high quality musicians. Yeah. That's where you go.
Yeah, someone who's like, just, you're going to get that level of performance, like that level of authenticity in what you're doing, because
that's so cool.
You're playing to someone who can't be deceived. So
I love that. I love that. It's such a smart way of looking at it. Do you think that, a lot of,
I'm just going to turn the heater on.
Yeah.
I've got a jacket here, but like, I feel whenever I'm like talking to someone with a jacket on, I feel like I'm about to leave. So like I get really weird. So I'm going to test out the I should probably actually, just as an aside, because we're in Anubis Studios at the moment. I've just moved into a permanent space here.
Well, I was going to ask you about this because you've got a pretty good setup here. I was going to say you don't pack this all down every single time.
I was for a while.
Yeah.
So like I had sort of like an electronic kit set up at home, and some rehearsal joints I would use, like house kits and stuff like that or whatever. But I was going back to like setting up and packing down, but then sort of the opportunity came up to actually rent out a room. This place is about 10 minutes from where I live. So, being actually able to practice your actual instrument is just a next level thing. So I'm actually looking forward to getting some proper actual practice in and getting some good improvement here. So I'm
distracting you a bit tonight with
no, it's all good. I'm still sort of setting up and all that sort of stuff, but
it's
I'm sharing.
Cool, man.
But this isn't the final. We're sharing the room just around the corner there. It's still being built, but they've put us in here for now. So I'm sharing this room with Dave Haley.
Yeah, nice.
So we'll probably he practices during the day. Practice during the afternoon, so
works out well.
It's worked out really well, but we're probably going to get together and have some jams and stuff like that. So
I think it's it's definitely one of those things where you can definitely justify definitely because you've got to share the thing going as well, but you can justify investing that sort of money because the return on investment is considerable because you've got, and look, you can say it for any instrument, but especially for drums. You can't just go and, I'm just going to have a bash around on the drums this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm not going to take anything away from guitarists. Like there is, something to having a cab in front of you being played the way you're going to play it. But especially today, like just, you can have like an amp sim and a set of headphones and have a wicked tone that you can jam on, and this is your guitar that you're going to be playing at every rehearsal and every show and all that sort of stuff. So it's night and day really when it comes to this sort of thing. Even like some of the best electronic kits, it's just like it's you know, I've made it work for me for the longest time, but compared to actually getting on the real deal, it's
a nice luxury. I mean, but it becomes, I think it just raises your standards, I think, as well, because you're reinvesting back in yourself, and it's not just about the stereotypical, well, I'm going to pay for better gear.
Yeah.
It's better everything.
Yeah, well, look, when the opportunity was there, I looked at the numbers and I'm like, look, I can make this work. It's that return. I'm like, it's with all the things that are coming up, all these tours, it's like, I'm wanting to put more work in and, make basically create a better product, really.
Yep.
This is the way to do it.
How many times would you come in here each week?
If I can, once I'm up and running, I'll probably be in here every day, because there's no reason why I can't. I mean, even because it is the kind of thing where I can just, come in and, even if I just come in and play for 20 minutes and just keep my hands moving and all that sort of stuff, because I sort of got into the habit of, with even practicing at work, like, I wasn't doing that, but leading up to the last Hadal Maw recording, I was just struggling with getting the material just to stay in my head. So I just started taking a pair of sticks to work and the sheet music, and, during my, lunch breaks, I'll just sit there and, I just found a bench and would just start tapping away on it. And then once the recording came and went, it's like, why aren't I just doing this all the time? So I started bringing my technique books from home, and once it's lunchtime, I pick up the sticks and keep practicing. And I've been noticing it. Like, we're talking like 20 minutes a day of hand technique, which is, it's not, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, and that's excluding like any practice during the afternoon. And the world of difference has been enormous. Like, anyone worth their salt knows that like a little bit every day is more productive than, say, a 3-hour session a week. I
think most people know, but what's the right word? They know, but they don't know. Like everyone knows in theory, but I think when it comes to themselves in their situation, I'm certainly a sucker for this, where I'll think, I don't have the time to do something, and then I realize that if I'm breaking it down to small chunks, then it's a lot easier to achieve. I'm thinking about the whole thing. I'm thinking about the big picture, and I'm thinking about how hard it is to get from where I am now to wherever that end goal is. And, rehearsing, practicing, everything. I mean, whether it be podcasting or playing or whatever, investing 5-10 minutes, 20 minutes a day to just chip away at things, even just from muscle memory, is just the most amazing thing. But I think we tend to think that we've got to do more than what we're doing, and so we overcommit as well.
And it's like, and that's probably my biggest sort of struggle and it's for a lot of things too, because aside from those, breaks that can, at work that can only be like, 10 minutes or so, but, if I practice, like, if I'm limited, then, I might get like an hour and a half on the kit or something like that, but I'm still perfectly capable of churning out 3 to 4 hours or something like that on a, if the time's there. But it's always been getting going. Like, I was just going through this sort of a motivational slump at one point, and, I was, talking to my psychologist about it, and I was just like, I've got no problems doing like, just like anywhere from 1 to 5 hours in a session, and I'll love it. But it's just, even just getting on and doing a little bit, it's
the routine that's off-putting.
Well, it was just the fact that she's like, that once you start that single moment where you make that decision, it's going to be like this massive session. And so that's where I've just left my focus with everything I'm doing. Like going to the gym, it's like, just get through the door, because if I start thinking about like, oh man, it's going to be really hard, I'm going to be doing all this, that's when you start to talk yourself out of it, or, go into a jiu-jitsu class or any of that sort of stuff. It's just, everything for me now is just like, just get on the drums, get through the door, turn up to class, just start the thing. And for anything really, it's just like getting to the doing moment, just the starting point, and just being happy with, just sucking at things a million times over. But it's like, anyone I know who is just getting anywhere with anything, they don't have their heads, buried in, piles of theory or anything like that. They're just doing shit, and they don't care if, if they're getting it right or not. They're just staying in the game, and it's the only way. So like I've just always heard that's what's been keeping me going, just erring on the side of whatever the actionable option is,
just do it.
I'll do that. You know, they say like, you know, bad decision is better than no decision.
Yeah, that's it.
It's been.
I think people, when they say, "Oh, I'm a perfectionist," I think it's more I'm a procrastinator, because I think people. Well, there's a few things. People are too scared to fail. They're too scared to do something that they believe is crap or subpar or whatever. But I think it's just. I think there's an element of all of us that is a little bit lazy. I think, you know, we'll always try and find the best way to cruise through something, a situation, through the day, through the hour, through the minute, whatever it might be. And so if we've got two paths in front of us, one is slightly more difficult than the other, then we're gonna naturally lean to the one that's going to be easier, even if the harder one's going to be a better return and you're going to get more out of it. You're always focused on that first decision, that first step, whatever it might be. And that's the hardest thing. And I think people don't stop often enough to be able to sort of think about it and understand that all I need to do is just that one thing. Everything else that happens afterwards is just like a chain reaction. It happens afterwards. And they talk about, you know, writing or illustrating, drawing and things like that. And they go, just show up every day and just write, draw. And, you know, every day for the next month could be utter rubbish. But it will get you to a point quicker that you'll be able to start producing something of quality. And I think people will not commence because they don't want to go through that first experience of, oh, this is shit, blah, blah, blah. And so they'll find every excuse to go down the easier path. And it's the same with drumming or exercise. And I know you do jiu-jitsu as well. That would scare the living shit out of me. But that's one of those things where, like anything in life, I think if you could break through that first step and walk into the room or get started or make the decision to get into the car and go to the destination or whatever it might be, then that's 3/4 of the battle done. Yeah,
and I think because I got into jiu-jitsu because of so many people just talk about this like this is it just changed my life. It just changed my life, and it's just like, and I definitely find that when I'm sort of consistently training, say 3 times a week, that everything else is just falling into place. And I don't know what that maybe because every session is just this microcosm of those just go for it decisions. And like and you know, and the cost of those wrong decisions are, it's like you get,
I'm such a pussy. I'm just like,
you're getting your joints ripped apart, you're getting choked, like all kinds of things. So, maybe that's what it is. I mean, it is an incredibly difficult thing to do, and to make the decision to turn up every week, and it is a very like, because most of the people there, like, just super nerdy. It's just like this, it's a very nerdy martial art. And maybe it is that marriage of the physicality with the intellectualizing, together that sort of just, I don't know, that really drives people. But I think, just putting yourself through that for, say a 1 hour class, that's going to feed into your next thing. Like it's all habit forming, I guess.
It's probably like the whole adversity thing. If if you can get through a session where you're really being challenged, like psychologically, physically, and you come out of that and you've proven to yourself mentally that you did it and you were able to do it and you could do it again, that pretty much everything else that you're doing in your normal day-to-day life is not really that extreme in comparison in different ways. But you could probably go, you know what, if I can do that, then most of these other things that I can do, while they still might give me a feeling of, being uncomfortable or being a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I can definitely do them because I've just been through something that's been so physically and psychologically demanding.
And not only are you doing it, you're losing badly while doing it. So it's like, and you have no other option, like, while you're there, because everyone else, particularly like, as you're starting, like everyone else is way better than you. So they're just going to kill you repeatedly. And as you get better, they're getting better too. And not to mention, they're just going to start turning the dial up as well. And so you go in, just like eat it for an hour, and then smile and walk out the door and move on with your life. So I don't know but it's like if you can do that to yourself, it's like everything else just seems really easy. And just to be like, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym or eat properly. It's been very hard for me to ignore that correlation where, I'm definitely someone where either everything's going really well or I'm just getting by, and then it's like, all right, I've just got to go from square one. Like me and a friend the other day were just having this massive laugh about how because she's someone who works extraordinarily hard as well, runs her own business and all that sort of stuff, and just about how like, we spent like a week getting just 8 hours sleep and just how better everything was, and it was just like how that just fixed everything. But just like that's a pretty rudimentary thing, but this was just blowing our minds, that just get it like
you're always on the brink of just not, it sounds so extreme, but not everything falling apart, but just sort of losing that flow, losing that momentum where suddenly things become disjointed. And it's that reset button that I think you have to allow yourself to do every so often, where it becomes something expected. Like you expect that you're going to have not a slump, because slump sounds like it's such a horrible thing, but it's something where you become a little bit disjointed out of whatever that might be. Your routine's out of whack, or you miss a couple of things along the way, and so you've lost that particular aspect, which then feeds into everything else. But I think that's the whole point of it. It can't be. It's like anything in life, and this is so such a cliche, but like nothing comes easy. Everything comes through adversity, and if everything was easy, then everybody would do it. And I mean, for me, like the self-talk that I do now compared to what I used to, I like to think it's considerably better. But when I'm having like a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, I'm sort of just thinking, well, it's only one of those things. It's only one day, it's only 1 week, it's only 1 month, because I know that I've certainly had worse, or I've been at a similar level in the past and I pick back up. And then I've gone back down and I pick back up, and that's just life. Yeah, it's never going to be this gradual increase, this incline of life where it just gets better and better.
Just on the escalator to greatness.
But the thing is and I keep telling a lot of people close to me and friends, is just the times where it becomes shit and becomes disjointed and you sort of fall off the rails. That's the time where you've got the advantage, because that's where most people go, I'm out. I'm throwing the towel in. This is fucked. Like, I've got more important things in life to worry about. This is not working for me. I'm shit at doing this. I'm shit at doing that. It's never going to work. And so that's when if you've got a bit more of a competitive nature as well, if you're running in a pack and then you get to this point, then that's when a large chunk of that pack disappears. That's where they stop. And anybody that can get through that period and come out the other side, even if they're just barely scraping by, but if they get through, you're already further away from that pack, and you're already in such a better position than everybody else, because not only have you gritted your teeth and got through it, but you probably become stronger from it, probably learned a lot more about yourself as well. It's the same thing of going through something that's physically demanding, going through that adversity where you're pushing yourself through these barriers where most people would not dare to do. And you learn so much more about yourself just the jiu-jitsu stuff, like no doubt the way that you interact with people, the way that you interact with situations, you would probably, and you can correct me if I'm off the mark, but you'd probably have so much more of a calmness and a lot more patience and understanding, and a lot more of the thinking before you act or thinking before you speak approach, because you can understand the velocity or of the intense nature of going through those more physically and psychologically demanding situations, where if you're dealing with somebody that's having a whinge or someone that's irritating you a little bit, it's like, it's not that bad, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like just my interactions in general have improved like significantly, like you're saying, that calmness and all that kind of stuff, and just across the board. And maybe it is because like particularly with, say, confrontation, like, the worst thing that can happen, and, it's never happened to me, but it is that, somehow there's like a threat of violence or something like that. But if you're actually confronting it, on a regular basis, then you sort of start to know what you're dealing with. And even from, obviously it's not, it's, at least for me anyway, it's never on the radar, but it definitely has that impact, because while if this, threat of violence is nowhere on the cards, then what's the worst that can happen in just this interaction with this other person? So yeah, but it's what you were saying before, like about that sort of quitting point. Like I remember I can't remember who it was, but they were sort of saying it was definitely music industry based, but it was like, they said, like, if you don't feel like quitting, you're not doing it right. And it's like, and
I like that,
which is funny because like every time I hit that point, it's like, is this the point? And then it's like, I keep pushing through. And I was having a similar conversation with, my same friend who's a PT who runs her business, and she's insanely busy with what she's doing and runs a lot of programs and all that kind of stuff. And at one point a while ago, she was a bit down on it and was like, same sort of thing, like experiencing a lot of like self-doubt and all this other stuff. And I sort of just came out with it, and I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was along the lines of like, you are like, you're a personal trainer. You are in the business of creating progress through failure. Like that is what
Absolutely.
weightlifting is. It's like, you don't, it's not, it's not about like you say you're doing 10 reps or whatever. It's that final rep where you cannot do any more and the muscles tear and all the damage happens and you have to stop. Like that's the one where all the muscle is built and all the progress is made. And I always keep, whenever I'm talking to people about this kind of stuff, I keep bringing it back to that, because that's where the magic happens. Like if you can really just hit up against the wall and be like we're talking about people who just do stuff. It's like, that's why they're getting somewhere, because like we, particularly like with, the highlight reel that everyone shows on Facebook, it's, we're only really seeing people's successes, and it's easy for people to go, it's like, well, look at this guy. He's just kicking ass like nonstop. It's just like, wow. But, we're not seeing the hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of, just failures and fuck-ups and embarrassments and all this sort of stuff, because, no one's in a rush to show that stuff off. It's always like, I did this, here's the thing I did, and just, brushing away all the, failures along the way. But it's, and I think people just go, I don't want to go, I'm just going to mess it up. It's like, yeah, you are, and you have to. And that's why those people get so, do so well, is because they're doing, and then eventually, they just know how to do well better. And it's, and I'm still experiencing that too. Like I was at the drummers weekend on the weekend, funnily enough. And, which is like it's a national, drumming expo and whatnot, which is pretty much where it's like the NAMM for drumming in Australia. So everyone's there, it's sort of a, big get together. And it was ace, I got to catch up with everyone, but I'm just looking around the room, just like, you name it, who's who, Australian drumming was there. And I'm just like hanging out and catching up with people. And I'm just like, I have no business being here around, in this, having this same conversation with all these people. Like, but I'll just, keep fooling them. Like I still very much feel that way.
It's all relative, isn't it? Because, there'd be a bunch of dudes out there who've probably seen you play in a number of different scenarios with different bands and probably just think, man, that's what I want to do. And would be really sort of really inspired by the things that you do and the productivity, the work ethic that you have and what you've achieved. And I think it also, the way that you present yourself out there, I think is important as well, because, going back to the scenarios you said before, I think a lot of people tend to put their highlight reel out there all the time. And I don't think you go on the other extreme or anything like that, but I think you just put everything out there. And I think there's that authentic aspect of it, but it also demonstrates everything that you're involved with, everything that you like, everything that you enjoy, but all the things that you go through. And I think that for a lot of people would be inspiring. And so it's all relative. It's that person to that person to that person to that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for you to be in a situation where maybe the day before, not thinking about going to this thing and just thinking about, you know, what you're doing and going, yep, no, things are going well. I'm kicking goals and everything's happening.
Yeah.
And then go into this scenario where it's like, oh, wow, like maybe I feel like I've got a long way to go. I shouldn't be in the same room as these people, but that's inspiring. That's
I mean, we're all very much thinking about where we want to be, like, and otherwise you wouldn't be interested in moving forward because you're wanting to be somewhere else. And yeah, it is very important to take stock, because if I really thought like this 24/7, then I probably well and truly would have, you know, put it away by now. But something that really put things in perspective for me is, you know, I was rehearsing not long ago, and a friend's band was rehearsing nearby, who've been long time close friends, and they had some friends of theirs over and one of them was a guy I hadn't seen in a really, really long time. And we started playing drums around the same time from the same teacher and all that sort of stuff. And he hasn't really played drums in a long, long time. And he was just like, and he's running his own business and, you know, doing really, really well out of it. But he just remarked on it. It had nothing to do with anything I was doing specifically. He's just like, man, you just get to play drums. Like, that is just the sickest. Like, because of what he's doing. Like, he can't even get behind a kit. Like, he wasn't even talking about, you know, like doing Unify or, you know, or doing a tour of here, there, or this, that, and the other. It was just like the fact that most days of the week I'm behind a kit. Yeah. And that is something that I just, until that point, hadn't realized how much I'd taken just that fact alone for granted, that I could just get behind a kit and just do the thing. I was just like, holy shit. I was just like, you know, I actually thanked him. I was like, man, you just like sort of, because I'm thinking like, I got this coming up. I got to be ready for this. It's like, God, I still haven't got this part. Like, really, you know, this isn't, man, he's doing that really well. Wish I could do that, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, he's just blown out on the fact that I can even have the luxury to set up a kit and get behind it. I'm like, oh, fuck.
And then it comes back to like having that balance of not being stuck in one world, one or the other worlds. Like, you know, having that spark where you get a bit of perspective and you can have some gratitude of where you are and what you're doing, but then not sit in that for too long and go back to putting yourself under the stress and the pressure in a healthy way to keep you going, to keep what you have, but also to build on it and continue to get better and better. So, and I think that's a difficult thing to do, because we tend to swing really dramatically with where we are mentally. And I think if you can, for me, I'm always on I need to do the next thing. I need to do the next thing. And I don't do all the cliches like stopping to smell the roses or, you know, really appreciating what I've got. I'm always like, what's the next thing I need to do? And I do that and I'm like, okay, the next thing. And then after a while, I get to that point where I'm having a crisis going, what am I doing with my life? I've got no idea where I'm going or what I want to do. And then I have to sort of really stop. And once again, it's that reset where you go, what have I done? And sort of reflect and then think about, what would the 15-year-old me think? What would the 20-year-old me think? What would the 25-year-old me think? Or what was I doing back then compared to what I'm doing now? And then you sort of go, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm doing good things. And then you can start to dip your toe back into the stress again, but at least you're there's a little bit more clarity instead of just fumbling your way forward all the time, panicking. Yeah, well, I actually found that out quite literally. One time I was cleaning out my studio because it's a mess. It's always a mess. This isn't going to remain. I mean, this is already a mess. I've been here for a day. Oh, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Oh, wait. You wait. But I was cleaning out my studio. This is a few years ago now, and just going through just piles of paper and stuff because I don't like to throw shit out. So I was just making sure it was stuff that I didn't need. And I found this thing that was typed out, and it was something that my drum teacher got me to do when I was about 14, 15. And he was like sort of one of the first teachers that really, really wanted to get me amped up about, you know, what I wanted to do with myself and all this sort of stuff. So he made me type up this list of like all the goals and stuff that I wanted all the stuff I want to do on a molder.
that's mad.
And I found that, and I'd done all of it.
Oh, really?
And I was just like, and I kind of just like stood there in shock. It's just, and I was in that mode of just like, I want to.
Was it all music based things?
All music,
goals?
yeah, music and industry kind of stuff. It was like, and it was like particularly at the time because I was just getting, that was when I had the snap, and just went into full nerd mode, and I was like practicing 8 hours a day and all that kind of stuff, and it was just like.
But was it like playing a large show? Or
it was like it was like going overseas. It was stuff to do with endorsements and even down to like the types of bands I wanted to be playing with and all this sort of stuff. There was like 6 or 7 different things on there, and it's like I'd done them all like ages ago, and it was like, and I was already just like, that's done, that's in the past. I really wish I kept that piece of paper actually, because then that way I could just look at that and just go, look, this was perfectly fine by you. And it's like, I mean, I don't know how, like, on one hand, how much do you want to trust the intuitions of a 15-year-old? Like, there is that, but yeah, you've got to take stock, and give yourself a little bit of a break. And because we're talking about like these ebbs and flows too of behavior and productivity, it's just like, and once again, bringing up, my friend, that we have these discussions all the time because we're both the same. We're burning hot and cold, and it's just like just running in the red, and then like, but those times where I have like a really sort of conservative lifestyle where I'm just like getting my 8 hours of sleep, and I just say, okay, I'm going to just lock it off. I'm just going to do my 3 classes of jiu-jitsu a week. I'm just going to do my half hour to 40 minutes at the gym, and I'm not going to kill myself. I'm just going to make sure I do enough.
Yeah. Get your baseline.
It's like, and eat well during the day, but I'm going to have some carbs. I'm going to have my pizza on Friday, and it's just like, and even though that kind of lifestyle is a little bit more vanilla in a way, because you're not Jocko Willinking your way through life. It's like I'm getting so much done because I'm consistent. I'm like developing that consistency. I'm not like just running in the red for ages, just like, just killing it, and then you give yourself the flu, or it's just like, you shut down because, you've been running in the red for so long.
I think, I think if you got your baseline there, I think that just keeps things moving no matter what, and you can fluctuate and you can go up and down as you go. But I think if you got a consistent baseline, that makes all the difference. And I think it's also that reassuring aspect to yourself where you can sort of think, like, I'm allowed to scale it back. I'm allowed to run at a different speed for a period of time, and it's okay. And I shouldn't feel guilty or beat myself up because I'm not smashing everything. I'm not doing all these amazing things, and all these guys. What's that guy's name? He's just been doing my head in recently.
Goggins?
Yeah. And that video went viral the other day. But
the one where he's just going for a jog.
Yeah, and he's talking about the heat or whatever, and he's like, I don't give a fuck about.
I wasn't born this motherfucker.
But his story is incredible. But his whole, him and Jocko are very similar with, I guess, their whole excuse mentality. It's just like, there's no, you just do it. Like there's no art to it. There's no like, special sort of psychological way of approaching it. It's just like, fucking do it. And then suddenly you're like, that's too much pressure. It's too much pressure. It's like, no, just do it. And I think those people are really inspiring, and I think it's great. But I think it's, once again, it's the balance of being able to have people like that to lean on and get your injection, get your adrenaline rush, and break out of some of those funks that you're in. But also, you need to be able to lean on other elements where you can give yourself the time to be able to run at a different speed and just go, this is okay, and I'm not going to beat myself up for it, and knowing that I will get back up and keep moving at a high speed. Yeah,
I've gotten better at that, especially perfect example, like, it only took 4 shows of this run with Hadal and just to get back and just boom, just crash into the ground. Like, I sort of, we drove back from Canberra on the Monday, and I think I worked half a day the next day. I was still just like, just wrecked, and I wound up just, making myself sick, and pretty much. And it is that time of year as well, I guess, with, illness floating around. But I'm only just now. So that was last Monday we got back, and I'm only just crawling out of that mire. But like I said, I'm getting better. I'm like, you know what? let's say with this moving to this studio, new students starting and stuff like that, it's like, look, I'm just going to skip the gym today because I know I can get these X, Y, and Z things done, and then it's done. Yeah. And it's like, and I'll train tomorrow. It's like I've got my whole life to go to the gym. It's like it doesn't mean that I'm putting it off till tomorrow. Like I know what needs to be done to look after myself and do it properly. Yeah. But it's like, for me anyway, I just focus on just trying to look after myself. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to get my beach bod or anything like that. It's like, it's purely mental health, maintenance. And part of that is because I'm not really doing myself, it's kind of counterproductive if I'm trying to go to the gym to look after my mental health, but so if I don't go, I start, tearing myself up about it. Yeah. So
there's a fine art to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Trial and error and experimenting with things to see what works and what
same
doesn't.
with going sober and all that kind of stuff. It's like if something happens and you wind up, having a couple of drinks, it's like, why am I going to beat myself up about it? It's just like, start again tomorrow. It's like, whatever. It's all good. As long as it's not that start again tomorrow and then stop again the next Saturday and then stop again. It's like, I've been sober for 6 days.
Pattern forming here.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. We put so much pressure on ourselves to make change and try and get better. But I think any progress is good progress. And I think if you can, deep down whether you're full of shit or not. Like you're your worst enemy. And that's a cliche in itself, but it's like we're always hardest on ourselves, and we're always trying to self-sabotage ourselves all the time as well. So we're trying to find the thing that will get us out of a situation to find that easier road, and there was a book that I was raving on about for ages. I need to read it again actually, because I need a dose of like just getting back on track. But it's The War on Art, I think, by Stephen Pressfield.
Oh, I've heard of it.
It's
I've
like
heard excellent.
You can read it in a couple of hours if you want to smash it out. It's like a really easy read.
Yep.
But the whole concept of it, and I'll probably butcher it a little bit, but is about this thing called resistance. And resistance is every excuse you can possibly think of. It's every easy way out. It's everything that you have those two options in front of you. One is the path to development, growth, success, opportunity, all these amazing things, and then the other is not doing that and just doing something that's easy,
very superficial,
or a bit of procrastination or whatever it is, and that is resistance. It's like that, and it's written in a way where resistance is this being, it's this presence, it's this thing that lingers around you all the time. It's like the angel and the devil on your shoulders, and resistance is always there to create bullshit stories for yourself to self-sabotage. And so the way he explains it is just to be able to mitigate that, identify it, and be able to stop yourself. And it's like all the mindfulness stuff, to be able to stop yourself in that situation and say, I know what's going on right now and I can put a label on it. It's resistance, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try this instead. And I need to read it again because it's been a couple of years since I've read it, but it is like, it's a game changer from a sort of a mental approach. And I've been able to get through so many, in hindsight, stupid moments where in the past it would have been daunting situations where I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have challenged myself because I would have found every other opportunity to not do something. And after reading this book, I was like, oh my God, like this is what's going on. And so I was able to stop myself and go, no, I'm going to push through. I'm going to take that one step. I'm going to do that one thing, take action, and just see what happens. I can always pivot. I can always retract if it's shit or it doesn't work out or whatever. And it's just been a game changer. And now I sort of look back at those situations and go, I can't believe I even gave myself an option. I can't believe I made that out to be bigger than what it was. In hindsight's a silly thing in general, but it's incredible that these things we create for ourselves, and there's no system, there's no government, there's no the man that's holding us down. We are the man. We are the person that's putting us under a thumb all the time.
Oh yeah,
and it's
you'll find the man that you think is
that's it, and that's to justify to yourself that you're not the person that's causing the problem. It's the victim mentality. You try and find an excuse to deflect the pain away from yourself. And if you can justify it and you can blame somebody else for another situation, then that keeps you going for another day. but you don't have to face that challenge anymore. You can cruise through and you can sit on the couch, or you can do something that's not productive or whatever it is.
And like you can cultivate that habit like every day. Like, I mean, it's like what I was saying before about like the things that really attract your attention in terms of like, you know, what it is you should be doing. Like, you just know. And in terms of those things that help you like grow, like those kinds of things, it's like, you know, it sounds silly. It's like, you know, whenever someone like asks you to do something and you haven't done it before and you feel that little bit of fear, it's like, if you can cultivate that habit of recognizing it and training yourself to go, I'm just going to go for it. So it's like, I'll be driving, or, you know, if I drive around and I don't know, it sounds silly, but it's like if I see a park that just like, you know, looks really difficult and it's just like, oh man, you know, it's like, I'm going to do it. So I want to take any opportunity to like, you know, just fight against that fear and just try something. And it's like, it seems silly because it's just that one little instance, but it's not that one little instance. It's like that, it's that difficult conversation or just that, you know, it's like, you know, when my personal trainer gets me to do like box jumps and I'm scared I'm going to eat shit every time. I'm just like, I know this is really hard, so I'm just going to, you know, do it because, you know, it's every opportunity to, you know, to face that thing and be like, no, like I'm not going to back down from this, you know. And once again, you know, jiu-jitsu is a good case of that. And, you know, I think, you know, my coach was like, you know, talking about competing and all that kind of thing. And just once again, the thought of it just terrified me. And I'm like, means I have to do it. Like, I
think it's fun. I think it's like it's how you frame everything. And there's a bunch of people that talk about framing out there, but it's just, you know, it's literally framing a situation and looking at it from a different angle. And for me now, and I'm not perfect because I'm certainly hopeless at times, but
if you were, you wouldn't do anything.
Well, there you go. Yeah. And, you know, I'll look at things and go, this is an experiment. It's like a science experiment, you know, or it's a social experiment. I'm going to see this and try this out, and let's see what the result's going to be. Let's see if this becomes like this hack in my mind, which makes it seem more exciting. Like, let's actually accept that thing that somebody's asking me to do that I've got no idea what to do. Let's actually say to that person, I don't know how to do it, but I'll try. And go through that vulnerable aspect where you're going to be exposed to that other person and they're going to know that you don't know. What's that going to do? And what you usually find is like a scenario like that is that you actually build and command a lot more respect because you're upfront and honest with people. And you're demonstrating behaviors that people want to be around, where it's like you're honest, but you're willing to try things. You're willing to give it a shot and see what you can do with it. And so for me now, I look at situations when I'm not in a flurry and in a haze and off the charts, but you know, in these moments I sort of can stop and go, all right, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. Like, fuck, like what's the worst that could happen? Yeah.
And it's with, you know, you know, resistance is like a really good way of putting it. It's, you know, to me, it's like, you know, no wonder we have all these things that we had, like, you know, these distractions, like the, you know, the smartphone's just the premium one. Like, I just know that, you know, to me, it's like the act of the getting lost in the smartphone thing is, you know, it's really only like a few hairs of, well, I shouldn't say it's quite a few hairs, but from say like watching TV to, you know, say like, you know, doing drugs or any sort of escapist kind of, you know, activity, like in a very superficial kind of escapist way. There's, you know, some very beneficial ways to escape, but it's that very quick, superficial way of ignoring the fact that you're actually existing on the planet at this time and you're not satisfied, and the only things that are going to be meaningful and give you a sense of satisfaction are going to be hard, and they're going to take time, and then they're going to take, you know, probably even more suffering than you're dealing with at the moment. So I'm just going to you know.
That's right. And,
you know.
and that's this resistance thing where it's saying, I'm going to give you justification or validate the feelings that you have by holding your phone, scrolling through it for however long, and you're going to be busy doing that. Yeah, you're going to be productive, and people aren't going to bother you if you do that because you look like you're doing something. And so, you know, chill out, relax, enjoy it, because, you know, you are doing something constructive. Yes, I am. I'm looking at things and I'm looking at what other people are doing. And before you know it, it's like 20 minutes have passed. I'm going, oh, fuck, I haven't done anything, shit. And then you've got to find the next thing to create some bullshit story to keep you going. Or you go back to your phone and go, actually, I didn't check that other thing. I'm going to go back and check that other. And so, but it's this resistance thing. It's so cool. It's so cool. before we wrap it up,
Yeah.
because we've been chin wagging. We've been chin wagging for a bit.
Oh, good.
The podcasting stuff. So you've been doing a little bit of it.
Yeah, sort of. I
And
wanted to do it.
it's on SoundCloud? SoundCloud.
SoundCloud,
God.
yes. I think I've got like one more. I've got enough free space for one more before I have to start looking at other ways. And we'll probably have to have a chat about that.
Is it like the free plan thing where you got so
Yeah,
much?
you get so X amount of minutes before you run out. So
Okay.
I've started looking at other ways of expanding it. But for me, it's just I probably am going to have to start listening, because apparently there was one where, because I've just been doing it, uploading it, and then blah, and then that's kind of it. But apparently there was one where like there was something was like clipping the mic, and it was just like horrible scratching noises all the way
really?
through. And I had no idea because I didn't listen back. I'm like, oh, sorry guys. For me, it's been like I used to do a thing where I'll just write everything down, so like do a big brain dump for like a page or two, like just write, whatever's in my head, just keep writing. It was an exercise that I picked up in a book called The Artist's Way, which was it's a creative exercise, where you're supposed to do it first thing in the morning, and it's supposed to be like 3 pages, but I actually just found it to be a typically therapeutic exercise to just write non-stop. And
Just
even
whatever's in your head.
Whatever's in your head. And it could just be like, I don't know what to write. This is really stupid, blah, blah, blah. And you just start looking for stuff. And you would sort of probably hit the wall about halfway. But if you keep writing, inevitably you start hitting on some really profound sort of stuff. And the podcast just sort of became that, where it was just like, first when I was doing it, I just had like one of those little clip-on mics.
Yep.
And I was just doing that while I was doing dishes and laundry and all that kind of stuff, and just talking, just instead of doing it on paper. And it was kind of good because I'm thinking out loud, but because I'm doing it knowing that it's going to be for an audience, I would sort of put a little bit more time in articulating my thoughts a little bit better. So I'd sort of, come out with something and be like, oh, no, hang on, wait a minute, and because I'm not bothering editing it. So, and I just found it to be a really beneficial thing. And I wanted to do it just as a thing promised to myself, because I didn't want it to be like, I'm doing a podcast, and then like just stop like 2 or 3 weeks later. So I kind of, but then I got like really busy and went overseas and stuff, and people, and some people messaged me like, oh, when are you doing the next one? And I'm like, oh shit, okay, well, that kind of, firstly reminded me, but people seem to, for whatever reason, seem to enjoy it.
I reckon it's so cool. The stuff that I've been doing over the last few years is like, it's become its own thing where like I'm part of it, but it's its own beast. Like it's becoming something, and it's cool, and it's part of like some of the goals that I have with these 2 shows that I created. But I did a thing for a while there where it was just like the dumbest name in the world, but it was just like Crazy Talk with Andy, and literally I had an app on my phone that was a recorder, and I had it hooked up to my car, and I used to do these long drives, and I would just spend, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes, just whatever's in my head. Same sort of thing, brain dump. And it got to the point where I was doing it almost every morning. So I'd do it Monday to Friday, and I would do it, upload it to YouTube before like 8 a.m. or before 8:30. So it was my version of like brekkie radio. I only have like about a handful of people that would listen to it, but there was some people that would be religiously listening to it every morning. And it was cool because it wasn't really, I guess for me, like the same sort of thing. Like I was articulating thoughts and trying to get thoughts out of my head, and it was quite a good thing for me. But then when people started to interact with it and respond a little bit, then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on record here. I've got to like think these things out. It didn't help. Like I just still spoke shit for like every day, but it was such an amazing thing for me. And I think it's a similar concept to what you're saying with like writing things down, where I think we start our day and, it's like dreaming, and you've got a million different things that are running through your head. They stay in there, they go. They stay in there, they go. And some of the harder thoughts, the things that involve effort, friction, uncomfortable, challenging moments, things that you procrastinate over, they're the things that come to your head and you go, scary, next, and you move on to something else. Oh, that's a nice thought. I'll stick with that thought for a bit longer. And we don't think the things through long enough to understand that everything's far more achievable than we thought.
Yeah.
And so when we write it out, we go, huh, is that it really? Is that all I have to do?
Yeah.
Like I've turned this into 5 steps. Done. So speaking and verbalizing all of this stuff, I've suddenly gone, oh man, like I've gotten to my destination, or I've stopped, stopped driving, and I feel like there's weight off my shoulders. I didn't even know I had weight on my shoulders, but now I feel so much better.
Well, you've externalized it.
I've worked through these thoughts, and sometimes it's just utter rubbish, like just shit talking, but it's still clearing my head to think about other things that are far more constructive and productive. So when I saw you were doing these things on SoundCloud, I thought I can identify that with that, because no doubt you'd be getting, and especially listening to some of the ones that you did, the types of things, or the things that you're working through, and the way that you were verbalizing it, you could tell that you were working through thoughts.
Yeah.
And you weren't just doing it, hey guys, like, this is my podcast, and this is me, and blah, 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 and here I am to entertain you and give you information that you'll enjoy.
I'm trying to bring you value.
Yeah, that's right. It was just like, this is in my head, and this is what I'm doing today, and this is what I'm thinking about, blah, blah, blah. And I think people can gravitate towards that. I think people identify with it because it's the same shit that we all think about.
Yeah, and some people even messaged me and said, this one particular thing that you said, like, I found that, I'd never thought about this that way, and, thank you. I thought that was really useful. And so that's just, that in itself is just sensational. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to get into, definitely going to move into, because I've had some people approach me who want to be guests and stuff like that. But I want to get like, but I just even want to have like, there's obviously, musician mates and stuff like that, and who I'd love to have on, but even just like mates of mine, because they're my mates because they are interesting people. My PT friend Shelley, who I keep bringing up over and over again, like we were she's someone who I also teach, but we were on doing a lesson via Skype, and I think we had a lesson for about 20 minutes or half an hour, and we just started chatting as we do, because we also just become close friends. We wound up, and it was, the time was up on the Skype thing, we ended up talking for like 3 hours or something like that. And I'm just thinking, like, the whole time, I'm like, I wish I just had the mic just to bring it across, because it was such a valuable conversation. Like, she was talking about moving to Thailand and studying kickboxing for 5 years and just living over it, and that whole experience. And then we're having like lengthy, discussions on just, all sorts of issues from different angles, on just, male and female interactions and all kinds of stuff. Like, when a conversation goes that long, you're going down the rabbit hole, and it was just like, it was just such a wonderful conversation. I'm just like, it doesn't matter that we're not, just particularly well-known, some well-known interviewer with some well-known author on like the biggest podcast or whatever. But to me, it felt like such a valuable conversation that was worth hearing. I'd love to be able to, do more of that sort of stuff.
It's so underrated, because, one of the reasons why I started doing this was to get better at talking to people.
I was going to ask, like, because you've been doing it for a long time, and, it is like, I've been listening too, like, it's a really good thing that, that you've got going. But as far as like, what have you been personally getting out of it? Other than, like, not in terms of like the building of the brand and the product, but like you personally, is how you function in your day-to-day life.
Oh man, like it's been probably, apart from like, music's been a big thing for me, and I think that's defined a lot of paths in my life. I wouldn't have got to this place if it wasn't for music. I wouldn't have got to this, and even like where we are now and the podcasting. But doing the podcasting, and I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm still in the early days. I've been doing it for a few years, but I think this is something where it's become so much part of my life that I just think it's just going to be here. Like, I'm not worried about, I've got to create content each week and make sure that's regularly out there. It's just like,
it's just part of the furniture.
Yeah, it's routine. It's routine. And don't get me wrong, when I haven't bulk recorded and I've got no episode for next week and I'm shitting bricks and I stress and I go, should I be doing this, blah, 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 same sort of thoughts. But it has become a part of my life, and I started it because I wasn't satisfied with the interactions that I had with other people. I was a social person in conversations, but it was always in the same environments. It was always at a gig. It was always after 3 or 4 beers. And what I found was that I'd bump into these same people that I had great connections with, great relationships with in those settings. And then I'd see them on like a Sunday afternoon walking past each other in town or something like that. And you'd be like, hey man, yeah. And then you go, anyway, see you, man, like catch you later. And you go, what the fuck was that? Like, why is this person, why was that so awkward? And then I realized that I lent on so many other things, so many other safety nets, so many security blankets, whether it be the alcohol or whether it be just the setting of being in a safe environment.
It's almost like muscle memory.
Yeah. And talking about things that you're just used to talking about. And so I got inspired by listening to other podcasts as well, but I just thought I need to get better at talking to people. And then I sat in my little safety zone and spoke to musos first, because that was my little my inner circle. But then I started thinking, fuck it, like I'm just gonna start emailing or contacting people and just seeing if they're interested, and then just running the gauntlet and just asking the dumbest questions that, for me anyway. And in hindsight, people, like, I finished talking to someone, they're like, you didn't ask any dumb questions. I'm like, oh, I thought I asked really dumb questions. And it's like my go-to line. Like, it becomes a habit. I'm trying to stop myself from saying it, because that's my little safe turn that I use to validate me being in the situation, to say, I'm going to be ignorant here, or I'm going to ask a bunch of dumb questions, blah, blah. So take me with a grain of salt, bear with me. And then that gives me like now I can relax.
Yeah.
But so much growth, like to be able to talk to people that I would never talk to, and not big names. And I've sort of stayed away. I had a couple of people on that have had a little bit more stature and a bit more fame. But I've really tried to stay away from the media runs of getting on press for the person that's about to tour. And I know I'll do one every once in a while, but it's different. It's a different thing altogether. And the best conversations I've had are with people that I've seen as mates. So same sort of thing. But I never spent enough time to talk to them in a different light, where you suddenly go, I never knew that. And you feel dumb saying that, because like, I've known you for like 10 years and I didn't know you did that. Yeah. You're like, yeah, of course. And it's like, well, I guess we don't talk about that like at 11 o'clock at night at the bar after five beers, And I've just discovered so much more about people that I've known for so long. And I've also learnt from other people that I just never would. I'd have no excuse to talk to people, like people from different backgrounds, different interests, different industries, and listening to them, I've got so much more compassion for people than I ever did before. And I think I identify a lot more where my bias is with just everything in life. And I sort of
check yourself a bit more.
All the time. But I've got so much more self-awareness with it. And it irritates me, because I think, oh my God, I can't believe that's my go-to, my default thought. But then I realized that that's part of my development, and the fact that I'm even realizing that is half the battle. And it's all been because of this stuff. And it's just been absolutely incredible. And there's probably a million other things that I've gotten out of it, but I never would have thought. I mean, it was a thing to improve communication for me, but it was also, I always say, it was a sneaky little bit of cross promotion for the band, where it's like, oh, look at this is a bit of a novelty. The bass player in Lord's got a podcast, and he doesn't really talk about the band that much, but he sounds like a cool dude, so I'm going to check out the band. Oh, they're pretty good. And that was my thought pattern. But after a while, that sort of went out the door, and it just became all for me. And the band bonuses on the side where people check it out became a byproduct of it. But it was always, this is my thing, and this is something that I've learned, and it's been cool, man. Like, and I just, as I said, like, it's become a part of my life, and this is all I think about all the time. It's like, where's my list of people? How I've got to tee things up, and going through the constant self-talk, the development of being able to break through all of the fears of, am I good enough to talk to this person? Should I talk to this person? Why would they talk to me? This person has achieved so much, but here I am, like, I've got no talent. I've just got a microphone. I'm just talking shit. Like, why would they want to talk to me? And then, like, constantly, all that sort of self-talk. And you start to identify it, and you start to go, oh, no, you're full of shit. You can't.
I'm here, doing it.
Send that email.
Already did it.
Send the email. stop, don't think to yourself that special that you think you can justify getting out of this. Like, send the email.
And
you're fine.
worst thing could happen is I'll say no, whatever.
Yeah.
So whatever.
And it's just it's the constant self-development there where you're mentally challenged quite a bit with it. It's the putting yourself out there in the public domain. Same sort of thing like we were talking earlier in the conversation about stand-up comics. I'm lucky because I put this out with somebody else. And so there's a bit of a mental deflection where it's not just me, although I'm rambling right now, but you put yourself out there, you're vulnerable, and you put your opinion out there, you say things, and you're not hiding behind a wall of noise. And that can be really daunting. And it's also another thing where the validation from other people, are they listening? You look at the stats and you go, oh, geez, is that all? Like, I thought that one went really well. And then you think, is this really the right thing? Am I actually not very good at this? Is that why people aren't listening to me? Because the other ones are doing really well. Maybe I'm not good enough. And so it's just that constant thing all the time. And then you check yourself and you go, no, it's okay. Just keep going. Because this is the point where everybody else would give up. And this is where all the other guys that I know, and I shouldn't say all the other guys, but quite a number of other people that I know and friends that started up podcasts and they were killing it. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell, like they're getting all the love. And then I look in my app and they haven't put an episode out in 6 months. I go, oh, what happened? No, too busy. Couldn't do it. And I've thrown that away, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And so I just keep pushing myself. So very long-winded, but it's been a game changer.
Well, it's like what we were saying, at the start about like the different bands and all the things like that. When, to have something for yourself, like a podcast outside of a constant like music that's always there, at least, when you've got this other thing that's just for you and it's got nothing to do with music. So like jiu-jitsu was the first thing for me outside of music that I was equally as fiery passionate about, that I never thought would be something that, I thought it was just music, one love all the way, blah, blah, blah. So to actually have this other thing, it definitely creates a lot of perspective, in your own life. And at least if one thing's, not going the way you think, at least you got this one other thing that's all yours and you have way more control over it. And particularly if you can really cultivate that self-satisfaction of it. If you're happy with it, then that's really all that matters. Like, I compose my own music as well. And like, once I'm happy with it and, I'll put it out, that's the start. That's it. That's the end of it. It's like, they're on YouTube. They've got like 70 views or something like that. I got no idea from like the first time I put it on Facebook, and it's like, I could not care less, and only, anyone who listens to it and says they enjoy it. Awesome. That's wonderful. That's amazing. But, I listen to it and I really enjoy it. And I'm like, once things hit that point, and it's the same with my, drumming related things too. When I've done something that I'm really, really happy with, it's like, well, it's pretty much invincible from there.
Everything inspires each other. So what you do, doing your own podcast for yourself and putting it out there, that inspires your drumming, it inspires your jiu-jitsu, and everything feeds off each other. You learn things through getting stuff out of your head. You learn things out of exerting yourself and putting yourself through physically and mentally demanding situations. You put yourself through situations, playing as well, and branching out of your comfort zone and playing with different players, different egos, different styles of music. And it all just feeds off each other. And it's my buzz term that I've been using so much over the last few weeks is the return on investment. I'm always about return on investment, but I should always clarify that it's not about a measurable return on investment. It's not about this equals this. It's the stuff that's not tangible. It's not the stuff that you can always see straight away. It's the stuff that, as you said, you put something out there and it might seem like nobody listens to it or nobody cares, but you've already got your return on investment because you've gone through that process where you've created something or you put something out there, you've got something out, and that's already feeding everything else that you're doing. Anything that comes off the back of that, as you said, like somebody listens to it, connects with it and gives you feedback, that's a bonus. but you've already got your return from that. And it's the stuff that I think people struggle with because it's not tangible. It's not something that I can put into a spreadsheet and calculate and work out, okay, well, if I pump this into this, then I expect this in return at bare minimum. If I don't, then I have to do this instead, blah, blah, blah. It's just not that. And that's the mind game. That's the challenge with it all.
And it's like, and if you're attaching, expectation to something, like your expectations are yours, and if you don't get them, then you've just manufactured your own losses.
Yeah.
So why would you do that?
That's right. I know it's crazy, but I mean
that's what we do.
That's right, and it's easy. It's easier said than done with a lot of this stuff. I mean, I think most things in life are fairly simple in nature, but very hard to execute, and that's because of our own. The old monkey mind, the resistance, all these things, the self-talk that we go through, and social stigmas, products of environment, generational things, all sorts of things in society that steer us in different courses, create bias and all this sort of stuff. And that's what makes simple concepts really, really complicated.
Just got to try. Just got to get through the door. Just got to turn up. Like if you can just,
take the
like
first step.
Just books are great. There's lots of great things there, but just get through the door. I think that's particularly for smarter people, that's where they really fall flat. They can just think themselves into the corner, and it's just like, no, just get through the door, turn up, just like show up on the day, and just play the game. Lose it enough times, you might win.
Well, I think that's a very inspirational point to end this conversation.
Let's do it.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah,
Thank you very much,
if you're still awake, then then you're ready to go smash out some deadlifts and do that class you were talking about doing, and write that book and all that stuff.
Go do it. All right, man. Well, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it, folks. We are inching closer and closer to the new album. No new news from last week, but if you didn't listen to last week's episode, please go back. But just to recap really quickly, we are almost done with the artwork. Album announcement should be out soon. We are finishing off some of the final touches of the recording, so the rest of it should fall into place very, very quickly. We are going to film some video clips at the end of November and get the whole press trail and press campaign together and roll that out ASAP. So hopefully we'll have an album announcement soon. I've got a funny feeling that the release date's going to be early 2019 now. I can hear everyone moaning, but I think anybody that works in music will understand that we're getting into a bit of a volatile part of the year for new music. So you don't really want to be releasing anything in November, December, unless it's a Christmas album. Honestly, like it's just going to get lost in the mix, and we're going to have to be very strategic about when we decide to release this album. But early next year will be, I think, the planned release date. But we'll have an album announcement very soon regardless, so at least you guys can see that there has been some progress. We are so desperate to get this album out, but really excited, and we are confident. We are so confident that it'll be worth the wait. So stay tuned. More updates as they come. But that's it, folks. Another episode in the bag. Thank you very much for the ongoing support. Please, as always, you can support the podcast in a whole range of different ways. The social media love, sharing it around, introducing the podcast to new people, the merch, the beer shouts on the PayPal button, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It helps. It's fantastic. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening to me waffle right now. I'm going to end it. Until next week, folks. Take